What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the TheVaultProScooters. My name is Austin, and in today's video, we're gonna be taking a look at our top 5 picks for decks for 2023. We covered forks, we covered wheels, and we read the comments, and a lot of you guys were asking for us to do top 5 decks, so we're finally here. Without further ado, let's jump into the first deck of this video, which will be the best all-around deck. So our first pick of today's video is gonna be the Ethic Vulcane V2 box deck. Why did we pick the Ethic Vulcane V2 deck as the best all-around deck? Well, some good reasons for that. First one being, it's not a terribly large size. The Vulcane V2 deck comes 5.1 inches wide, so it's not insanely wide and it's not very small. It doesn't necessarily cater to a park rider or a street rider. It pretty much lands somewhere right in the middle, which is perfect for an all-around deck. It comes in either 20.9 inches long or 22 inches long, features an 83-degree head tube angle. When it comes to wheel compatibility, you guys are looking at max 125mm wheels. You can ride 12 standard wheels. It comes with the 12 standard axle here pre-installed. However, in the box, when you guys buy this deck, it comes with the conversion axle and conversion spacers to ride the smaller wheels, but you can ride 12 standard wheels or up to 125mm by 24mm. Unfortunately, Ethic still does not make 30 wide compatible spacers for their deck. So that means you cannot ride normal 30 wide, non-12 standard wheels on any of these Ethic decks. However, I'm sure we'll see that in the future. The back end of the deck does feature these really sleek deck ends that slip in and slip out, prevent the deck from caving in, and they also are rounded here at the bottom. Another big reason we decided to use the Vulcane V2 for this video is because this version is boxed. You can see it's got the squared end, but it also comes in a non-box option, which means it caters to the other side of scootering even further. If you're leaning more towards park, you can get the non-box version, get the shorter version, you're good to go. If you're leaning a little bit more towards street, you get the box version, you get the 22, and you're good to go. You can pretty much pick or choose whatever version of this deck that fits your style the best, but since it is so universal and crosses so many styles and preferences in riding, it holds the spot today for the most all-around deck you can buy. Moving on, we just covered the best all-around deck. Let's jump into our park deck pick. And here you guys have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Fusion Entropy 2.0 deck, in my humble opinion, is one of the most underrated scooter decks you can get. Not only is this deck incredibly light, like incredibly light. We're talking like 2.7 pounds light, which isn't too far off from like a Pandemonium or a Hydro deck. And it looks incredible. I love the Entropy head tube. I love the cutouts and the shape. To be honest, this deck just is very recognizable to me as a Fusion deck, and I think it's one of the best looking park decks on the market as well. And just to clarify, we are gonna be talking about the 4.75 inch version of the Entropy deck. It does come in a few different widths, but for the sake of today and picking the park deck, we're gonna be focusing on the smallest version. So you're looking at 4.7 inches wide by 19.5 inches long. It has an 83-degree head tube angle. Wheel compatibility, you guys can ride 24 or 30mm wide wheels on it. As you can see, both spacers are here on the bottom. So you got the bigger ones for the 24s, you got the smaller ones for the 30, but it is nice to know that you can ride bigger wheels on this deck, like the Fusion thick boy wheels, 2Cs, super thick. Either way, great specs. You guys heard me mention the weight earlier, 3.7 pounds, which is incredibly light. And for any park rider that's throwing overheads, this is something that you guys will be taking into account. So the Fusion Entropy 2.0 deck does come in a few different colorways. However, you have a world's first exclusive in this video, brought to you by TheVaultProScooters, of course. This deck is available in the brand new pink colorway. And if you can't tell by my beanie or the light back there, this is a great color. For a lot of you guys out there that were really wanting the pink Delaney ball signature tilt deck, but you didn't want a 6 wide, didn't want something boxed, and you're more of a park rider, you will finally be able to get your hands on a baby pink park deck. With that being said, and all the specs that I just ran through, we think the Fusion Entropy 2.0 deck fits the profile perfectly for our pick for the best park deck of 2023. Look at this graphic. Look at that, it's holographic. Can you see the colors? Pretty sick. It's like my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. If you guys are interested in picking up one of these Entropy 2.0 decks, every link for every deck that we talk about in today's video will be down below. All right, so we just covered the park deck of 2023. Let's move straight in to the street style deck as well. So for our street deck pick, we ended up going with the Tilt Formula Deck. The Tilt Formula Deck has taken the scooter industry by storm. You guys probably saw these at every skate park that you went to, whether it was the yellow prototypes, whether it was the fire orange ones, and now finally the black one. You could have also seen it on the Delaney and Will Judy, and now Eden Gagliano signature Formula Decks. However, you guys can pick this bad boy up right here in solid black and be good to go. This is by far our top pick for the street deck of 2023 because it is essentially the best deck that Tilt can make as of now. They have worked their way through the Theory series, the Theory 1, 2, and 3, some of the best decks that we've ever seen, and the formula is essentially everything that Tilt has learned from making those decks put into this bad boy right here, and let me tell you, this deck feels incredible. If you haven't had the chance to try one of these out yet, you definitely should because there's something special about this deck. I don't know if just the way it was designed and engineered, but this deck has a very, very great feeling. And when it comes to street riding, it's gonna cater to anything you guys throw at it. So let's quickly talk about specs. I'm not smart enough to remember all these specs, so forgive me, I'm gonna read them off my phone. All right, Tilt Formula Deck. Specifically, the 6.5 width version. It does also come in a 6 wide as well as a 7 wide, but for the sake of today, the 6.5 has pretty much solidified its spot in the most popular size in the street community, so we're gonna use it today. All right, so Tilt Formula Deck, 6.5 inches wide. You're looking at 6.5 inches wide by 22.8 inches long. You have 16.4 inches of foot space. You can ride 24 and 30 millimeter wheels. If you want to ride 30s, you just take these little spacers right here off and ride no spacers, and you can ride 30 wide wheels. You can fit up to 120 millimeter wheels, nothing bigger than 120, and unfortunately, you cannot ride 12 standard on this deck. But if you're not looking to ride 12 standard, you're good to go. And finally, the Tilt Formula Deck weighs 4.2 pounds in the 6.5 inch variant. Obviously, if you pick up the 7 wide, it's gonna weigh a little bit more, and if you pick up the 6 wide, it's gonna weigh a little bit less. But regardless, 4.2 pounds for a 6.5 inch wide tilt deck, something else, definitely a benefit. Either way, you guys can see this deck is just sleek, it's high quality, you're paying for what you're getting for. However, I can tell you from my own experience, it is definitely worth it. So, Tilt Formula Deck holds a spot, is our street deck pick of 2023. All right, guys, so we've covered the best all-around deck, we have covered park and street. Finally, let's move into the lightest deck, because I know a lot of you guys at home wanna know, and spoiler alert, you're probably not gonna be surprised at what deck it is. Are you surprised? The Ethic Pandemonium. What is there to say about the Ethic Pandemonium, other than it has reigned at the top of not only so many park riders' top choice of deck, but also the lightest deck on the market. So if you guys at home are shopping for the lightest deck, and maybe you haven't had the chance to try the Pandemonium yet, I would highly recommend you try this deck because it's strong and it is extremely light. And when I say light, we're talking 2.2 pounds. I don't think you guys can understand what 2 pounds feels like in your hands, but it is absolutely nothing. This deck weighs nothing. I could chuck this 4 cities over if I just threw it. That's how light this thing is. But that's enough about that. Let's talk about specs. We're doing the phone again, guys, so sorry. Brain don't work today. All right, Ethic Pandemonium deck. Specifically, the 19.3 inch long version, just because it is the most popular for the park riders, and it is also the lightest variant of this deck. And since it's the lightest deck, we gotta use the lightest version of this deck. So either way, Ethic Pandemonium deck. You guys are looking at 4.7 inches wide by 19.3 inches long. When it comes to wheel compatibility, you guys are limited on the Pandemonium deck. This deck was designed so long ago that wide wheels and 12 standard and all that stuff really wasn't taken into account. 110 by 24 millimeter was pretty much the most common wheel size. It still kind of is today, but you guys get what I mean. So the Pandemonium is actually only compatible with 110 millimeter by 24 millimeter wheels. I guess you could take the brake off to ride a 120 if you wanted to. The Pandemonium does still include that 83-degree head tube angle, just like the rest of the Ethic decks. I don't know what else to say. Like, this deck kind of just speaks for itself. You've heard of this deck. You have seen this deck. You might have already owned 4 of these decks. I don't really know, but this deck has a reputation of its own, and it's something that only people can say good things about, which is really, really nice. For those of you guys watching at home that might want the Pandemonium, but you want something a little bit bigger. You will still be stuck with that 4.7 inch width. However, it does come in 2 other lengths. You're looking at 20.9 inches long or 22.4. So there's 3 different lengths available in the Pandemonium deck for you guys to choose from. If you want the lightest of the light, you should definitely be going with this guy right here. 19.3, 4.7, 2.2 pounds. What more do you need for the lightest deck? And that's why we picked it today. So do not be salty in the comments. Do not tell me the Aztec Hydra deck is lighter. It is an honorable mention, but this right here is without a doubt the lightest deck on the market. I can't tell you how many times we have weighed a Pandemonium deck and a Hydra side by side, and this guy comes out on top every single time. We did our homework. Take our word for it. So that's it for the lightest deck. Let's move on. So we just covered the lightest deck on the market. What's next? Heaviest. Just kidding, we're not gonna do heaviest. However, we will be covering the strongest deck on the market. If you guys watched our top 5 fork video, we covered the strongest fork there, and it seemed like a lot of you guys really liked that just because there are riders out there that are seeking strong and reliable parts. And when it comes to decks, it's the same thing. Some people don't care about weight. Some people don't care about anything beyond how strong is the deck, how long is it gonna last me, and when am I gonna have to buy a new one? And for that reason, we thought it would be perfect to showcase what our top pick is for the strongest deck on the market in 2023. So we decided to pick the North G2 Horizon deck, specifically the 6.5 inch wide variant. It does come in a 7 wide and maybe even a smaller size, and the strength will stay there regardless. But today we're gonna be focusing on the 6.5 version. This guy comes 6.2 inches wide by either 22 or 23 inches long. Wheel compatibility, you guys can see there's 2 sets of spacers here, so you guys can run 30 wide or 24 all the way up to 120 millimeters. Head tube angle wise, we're looking at 83.5 degrees, so slightly higher than the Ethic decks, but still a really, really nice head tube angle. With strength comes a few drawbacks. If you want a deck to be stronger or the strongest, you're gonna have to take some shortcuts. And one of the biggest ones is you're gonna have to sacrifice weight to increase strength. And with this North deck, it's pretty much the perfect example. The North G2 Horizon deck is a bit heavier than other decks that are similar in size. However, the strength is something that cannot be ignored. This deck comes in at just under 5 pounds, but it is without a doubt one of the strongest decks that you guys can buy today. So if any of you guys are shopping for a new deck and you're really looking for something that just isn't gonna blow out on you and you want something that's gonna last forever, this is the deck for you. Like I said, it's a tad bit heavier than some of the other decks that we talked about today, but without a doubt, it is the strongest deck out of all the decks that we showed you today, and that's why we picked it. That's why the North Horizon G2 deck holds the spot for the strongest deck of 2023. Other than that, there's not much more to say about the North Horizon G2 deck. It is a bit heavier than the rest of the decks on the list today, but I can say without a doubt that this is the strongest deck out of all of them, and that's why it's holding the place for the strongest deck in today's video. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. I really, really hope all of you enjoyed, and hopefully you guys learned a thing or two, and better yet, hopefully you have a better idea of what deck you guys might wanna pick up next. Before I go, just a reminder to go out and ride your scooter. Don't forget to shop TheVaultProScooters for all your scooter needs. And until the next one, have a good one.